On my lunch break, I saw my husband with our neighbor inside my bathtub. So, I locked them inside and called her husband to come over. There are specific moments in life that change you forever in the blink of an eye. They are these shattering instants where everything you thought you knew about your world crumbles right in front of your face, leaving you standing in the wreckage. Mine arrived on a completely ordinary Tuesday when I decided to drive home to pick up some paperwork I had foolishly left behind. Before I go any further with this story, I would love to know where you are watching from today. Please write your city or state in the comments below because I absolutely love discovering how far these life-changing stories travel. My name is Josephine Bell, and I was a 34-year-old woman who truly believed she was living a perfect life. I had 8 years of marriage under my belt and a beautiful townhouse in a quiet subdivision just on the edge of the city. I had neighbors that I considered close friends. I worked as a claims adjuster for a major insurance company, and my routine was predictable, comfortable, and safe. That morning, I had rushed out the door in a frenzy just like I always did. Jackson Scott, my husband, stayed behind in his home office, which is what he had been doing for the last few months. Welcome to Greta's Stories, where I share new life stories every single day. If you subscribe and like my video, it really means the world to me. Now, let us get back to the story that I am sure will keep you hooked until the very end. I will see you tonight, honey. Jackson shouted to me from his study as I closed the front door. I never in a million years could have dreamed that those would be the last normal words spoken between us. What I was about to discover upon my return would not only destroy my marriage, but it would alter my entire sense of self forever. My life was like a well-oiled machine, precise, organized, and without surprises. Every morning at 6:30, I brewed the coffee while Jackson took his shower. We ate breakfast together while watching the morning news. I drove to work and he stayed in his makeshift office in our guest room. We lived in a 2-story house in a manicured cul-de-sac. I had chosen every piece of furniture, every paint color, and every decorative detail with almost obsessive care. It was my sanctuary, the place where I felt safest in the world. The neighbors were like family, especially Caroline Collins, who lived directly across the street with her husband Lincoln and their 2 small children. Caroline and I had become very close since they moved in 3 years ago. We drank coffee together on Sundays and borrowed ingredients from each other while cooking dinner. I watered her flowers when they went on vacation. I trusted her completely. I trusted Jackson completely. I trusted my life completely. That blind trust would turn out to be my greatest mistake and paradoxically my greatest gift. That morning, there was something different in the air, but I could not put my finger on exactly what it was. Jackson seemed more nervous than usual during breakfast. He was constantly checking his phone, and when I asked him if everything was okay, he just gave me evasive answers. I drove to the office with a strange gnawed in my stomach. All morning while I was processing insurance policies, I could not shake this feeling of unrest. I called Jackson to see if we should grab lunch together, but his line was busy. As I was sorting through some files, I realized I had left important documents at home, documents that I absolutely needed for an afternoon meeting. I had no choice but to drive back to get them. I told my boss I needed to step out for an hour to handle a personal matter. The drive from the office to my house took barely 15 minutes. I thought I would just run inside, grab the papers, maybe grab a quick bite with Jackson, and then head back to work. Life has a cruel way of laughing at our simplest plans. When I pulled up to the house, the first thing I noticed was Caroline's car parked in my driveway. That is strange, I thought, because she always parked in front of her own house directly across the street. I unlocked the front door with my key and the silence hit me immediately. The house was too quiet for 2 people to be inside. Jackson always listened to music when he worked, and if Caroline was visiting, I would expect to hear laughter or conversation. Jackson, I called out from the hallway. No one answered. I walked into the kitchen thinking maybe they were in the backyard, but there was no sign of them. Their shoes were not in the hallway, which was customary when Caroline visited. The breakfast dishes were still in the sink exactly how I had left them that morning. Then I heard something that made the blood freeze in my veins. It was the sound of running water in the master bathroom or bathroom that I had shared with Jackson for 8 years. My first instinct was to think Jackson was just taking a shower, but something did not fit. Where was Caroline? Why was her car here if she was not? The questions multiplied in my mind as I climbed the stairs, unaware that every step was bringing me closer to the moment that would divide my life into a before and an after. I walked upstairs with my heart racing, trying to find a logical explanation. Maybe Caroline had come over to borrow something, and Jackson offered her our bathroom because hers was broken. Maybe there was an emergency and she needed to shower for some reason I could not comprehend. My mind clung desperately to any explanation that would keep my happy world intact. I walked down the hall to our bedroom. The door was cracked open, and the sound of the water was louder. But now I could hear something else. Voek's quiet, whispering, intimate voices. My hand shook as I approached the door. Part of my brain screamed at me to stop, to turn around and go back to the office to pretend I had never been here. Do not open that door, because deep down I knew that what I would find on the other side would change everything forever. But the other part of me, the part that needed to know the truth, no matter how much it hurt, pushed me forward. I placed my hand on the bathroom door, took a deep breath, and pushed it open gently with a movement that seemed to happen in slow motion. What I saw on the other side of that door was not just a betrayal. It was the death of the woman I had been up until that moment. There is no possible preparation for the moment your reality dissolves completely. There is no manual that teaches you how to react when you catch the two people you trusted most abusing that trust in the most intimate way possible. There they were, Jackson and Caroline, in my bathtub, in my house and my sanctuary. Their bodies were intertwined, completely cut off from the outside world, lost in their own bubble of deceit. The water ran over them as they kissed with a passion I had not seen from Jackson in years. His hands roamed over her body with a familiarity that could only mean one thing. This was not the first time. For a moment, I was paralyzed. My brain refused to process what my eyes were seeing. It was like I was watching a movie. Something that could not be real, that could not be happening in my life. But then Caroline opened her eyes and saw me standing in the doorway. Her face shifted in a split second from lust to pure horror. Jackson followed her gaze, and when he saw me, he froze. "Josephine," he muttered, as if saying, my name could magically undo what had just been revealed. In that moment, something broke inside me, but it was not what I expected. It was not my heart that broke. It was the chains of the submissive and trusting woman I had been until then. I did not scream. I did not cry. I did not collapse like they probably expected. A strange, almost supernatural calm took possession of me. It was as if I had stepped out of my own body and was watching the scene from above, completely detached from the emotions I was supposed to feel. "Stay exactly where you are," I said with a voice I did not recognize as my own. It was cold, controlled, and powerful. Jackson tried to climb out of the tub. "Josephine, wait. I can explain." "Do not move," I repeated, and something in my tone made him stop immediately. I closed the bathroom door with a decisive movement, and without hesitating for a second, I turned the key in the lock. The click of the lock echoed like a gunshot through the silence. "Josephine, what are you doing?" Caroline's voice sounded panicked from the other side of the door. "Stay in there and think about what you have done," I answered, surprising myself with the coldness of my words. "In the meantime, I am going to make a few phone calls." I walked to my nightstand, picked up my cell phone, and looked for a number in my contacts. A number I had dialed hundreds of times for trivial things. Dinner invitations, neighborhood helped, casual chats, but never for something like this. Lincoln answered on the second ring. "Hello, Josephine. How are you?" "Hello," Lincoln answered with the same terrifying calm. "I need you here at my house immediately. There is something you need to see." While I waited for Lincoln to arrive, I sat on the edge of the bed, the same bed I had shared with Jackson for 8 years, and I let the reality hit me with full force. The signs had been there all along. Jackson working from home more often, his visits to the gym getting longer and longer, the way he had been putting his phone away lately when I came near, the extra showers he took to relax after work. And Caroline, sweet Caroline, who always found excuses to come over when Jackson was home, who had suddenly started dressing differently. More flirtatious, especially on the days I was working. She knew details about Jackson's routine that I had never told her. Desperate whispers came from the bathroom along with the sound of them gently knocking on the door. "Josephine, please. This is insanity," Jackson said. "Let us out so we can talk like adults." Adults. The word made me laugh. Adults were the ones sleeping with the neighbor's wife in their own wife's house. Adults were the ones constructing elaborate lies to hide their betrayal. My phone vibrated. A message from Lincoln saying he had left work. I replied telling him to just come inside. I would explain when he got here. In those minutes of waiting, I did something I had never done in my life. I checked Jackson's phone. He had left it on the nightstand when he went to shower. It had no passcode. After 8 years of marriage, we believed in total transparency. What an irony. What I found there confirmed that this betrayal went much deeper than I had imagined. The messages between Jackson and Caroline went back more than 6 months. 6 months full of good morning, beautiful, and I cannot stop thinking about you. 6 months of carefully orchestrated plans to meet when I was not around. 6 months of laughing about how clueless I was, how easy it was to deceive me. Josephine is so naive, Caroline had written. I think we could do it in the living room and she would not notice. That is what I love about you. Jackson had replied that you are the opposite of her adventurous, spontaneous fun, but the message that tore me apart internally was one from just 2 days ago. Do you think we should tell them? Caroline asked. Sometimes I feel guilty about Josephine. She is such a good person. Not yet. Jackson had replied. I need to make sure she does not take half of everything in the divorce when I break up with her. Give me a few more weeks. I read that message 3 times before the words really sank into my brain. They were not just cheating on me. They were planning to ruin my life financially. Then the doorbell rang. Lincoln was here. I walked down the stairs with trembling legs, clutching Jackson's phone tightly as evidence. Through the window, I could see Lincoln standing on my porch, his brow furrowed, visibly worried about mysterious call. Lincoln was a good man, hard-working, devoted to his family, completely infatuated with Caroline. I had seen him with his children, carrying them when they got hurt, staying up at night when they were sick. He deserved the truth just as much as I needed to know it. I opened the door and saw him standing there in his work uniform as a plant mechanic. He had probably run from some job site to see what emergency I had. His eyes showed genuine concern. Josephine, what is going on? You sounded very serious on the phone. Is everything okay? For a moment, I hesitated. As soon as I spoke the words, there would be no going back. Lincoln's life would also be in pieces. His children would have to deal with their parents divorcing. His whole world would collapse just like mine. But he deserved the truth. Lincoln, I said, and I surprised myself with how steady my voice sounded. Caroline is here inside my house with my husband. I caught them together. I watched as the words took a few seconds to land in Lincoln's brain. His expression shifted from concern to confusion, then to disbelief, and finally to a painful understanding that I recognized perfectly because I had just gone through the same thing. What do you mean together? He asked, even though he knew exactly what I meant by my tone. I found them in my bathtub, I answered softly. I locked them inside. They are waiting for us to decide what we are going to do. Lincoln leaned heavily against the doorframe of the master bedroom, as if the bones in his legs had suddenly turned to water. His face, usually so warm and full of life, had gone completely ashen, drained of all color. How long? He murmured, his voice barely audible over the humming of the air conditioning. I handed him Jackson's smartphone without saying a word. According to what I had just read, it had been going on for at least 6 months, perhaps even longer. As Lincoln scrolled through the thread, I watched his world disintegrate in real time. It was the same hollow look I must have worn only minutes prior. That same devastating mixture of disbelief and betrayal, the sickening realization that the life you thought was solid ground was actually quicksand. Oh my God, he whispered, bringing a trembling hand to his mouth. The kids. Josephine, how am I supposed to explain this to the kids? It was the first time since walking into that bathroom that I witnessed someone else experiencing the raw, jagged edge of this pain, and strangely, it made me feel less alone in the nightmare. We moved downstairs to the living room, needing to get away from the physical proximity of our spouses. We sat on my beige sectional, surrounded by framed memories that now felt like they were mocking us. There were photos of Jackson and me cutting our wedding cake, photos of our 2 families on vacation together in Myrtle Beach, and snapshots from Christmas parties where we were all laughing in matching pajamas like one big happy clan. It had all been a performance. I need to understand, Lincoln said, his voice cracking. When did this start? How could I have been so blind? We huddled together over Jackson's phone, scrolling back to create a timeline of the treason. The first romantic exchange had happened the night of a dinner party right here in this house. I remembered that evening perfectly because we had laughed until our sides hurt. End story. Thanks for watching and subscribe.